When I saw my son-in-law, Rafael, holding those papers in my living room, with my daughter Beatriz standing beside him in awkward silence, I felt the ground disappear beneath my feet. Not because of the documents themselves, but because of the cold glint in his eyes. That look I had seen before, but always wanted to believe I was mistaken about. Teresa, you need to understand that this is for your own good, he said with a calculated calm that made each word sound like a sentence. A woman your age shouldn't live alone. You forget things. You get confused. We found an excellent clinic, very comfortable. You'll have company, professional care. My daughter looked away when I searched her eyes. It was at that moment, in her cowardly silence, that I understood the scope of the betrayal. They weren't there to talk. They were there to harass me. My fingers trembled, but not with fear. It was something different, an ancient fury, dormant for years of forced cordiality, of diplomatic smiles at Sunday lunches, of swallowing malicious comments, disguised as concern. Excellent. He repeated the word slowly, savoring each syllable as my mind worked at top speed. You think it's excellent to take me out of my house, out of my life, to lock me up in a place against my will? Rafael sighed with that theatrical patience of someone dealing with a stubborn child. It's not against your will, Teresa. You just need to sign here, and not signing anything. He cut him off, my voice finally finding the firmness he had hidden for so long. And you two are going to get out of my house. Now, his face hardened. There was the real Rafael, without the mask of caring son-in-law that he wore so well in public. You're making this harder than it needs to be. We have medical reports that prove. Medical reports? My voice rose an octave. From which Dr. Rafael? I've never been evaluated by any doctor for that purpose. Dr. Carvalho, a family friend, has already provided us with a preliminary assessment based on what we've observed of your behavior. He spoke as if we were in a business meeting, not deciding the fate of a human being. Observe the behavior. You mean the times I forget where I put my glasses? Or when I confuse the names of your children, who I barely know because you never bring them here? The sarcasm cut my own throat. Beatriz finally spoke, her voice small and full of empty justifications. Mom, we just want what's best for you. You're getting old. Things can happen. He looked at my only daughter, the girl he cradled on feverish nights, who I defended from bullying at school, who I supported alone after her father abandoned us. Where was that girl now? When did she turn into this woman who looked at the floor while her husband tried to have me committed as if he were a problem to be solved? What's best for me or what's best for you? He asked, and for the first time in 63 years of life, he felt my heart truly break, not from the pain of rejection, but from the brutal clarity of that revelation. Everything made sense now. The increasingly rare visits, the glances exchanged when they mentioned my finances, Rafael's sudden interest in knowing about my investments and properties. He wasn't a mother who needed care. He was an obstacle. The previous months paraded through my memory like scenes from a movie I had watched without paying attention to the important details. Rafael asking subtle questions about my financial health, casually commenting on succession planning, suggesting I seen power of attorney papers to make things easier when you need them. Beatriz always nodding in agreement, like a well-trained puppet. He had interpreted everything as concern. How foolish I was, but no more. He sat in my favorite armchair, the green velvet one, I bought with my first paycheck as a tenured professor, and crossed my hands in my lap, assuming the posture that had intimidated unruly students for decades. You will sit down and listen to me now. He pronounced each word as if I were teaching a class, with absolute authority, and surprisingly, they sat down. Raphael with poorly disguised irritation, Beatrice with guilt plastered on her face. I'm going to tell you a story, the story of how I got here. My life has never been easy, but I've also never asked for ease. He grew up in a humble family in the countryside, where being a woman meant having a destiny already mapped out, marry young, have children, serve. But I had other plans. At 17, against my parents' wishes, he came to the capital with a suitcase of worn clothes and a stubborn dream of being a teacher. He lived in cheap boarding houses, worked during the day in stores, and studied at night. Each book he bought was a choice between eating properly or fooling. Me, he chose the mind. He met Charles in college. He was handsome, charming, full of golden promises. He said he loved me, that we would build an empire together. He convinced me to give up a scholarship abroad, to marry him. 3 months after the wedding, he discovered the first betrayal. He had swallowed my pride and forgave him, because I was pregnant with Beatrice, and my mother had taught me that a real woman keeps the family together at any cost. What a cruel lie. Charles betrayed me 14 more times in the following 12 years. 14 that I knew of. How many more were there? Each time I forgave him and blamed myself, thinking he wasn't good enough, pretty enough, interesting enough. Until the day I came home early and found a woman in my bed. Not just any woman, my best friend Susan. At that moment, something inside me simply died and was reborn different, stronger. I grabbed Beatrice, who was 9 years old, and left home with the clothes on my back. Charles laughed, said I wouldn't last a week, that I would come crawling back. He didn't know who he was dealing with. He rented a tiny room, went back to teaching, did odd jobs grading papers, gave it private lessons until late at night. Beatrice studied beside me while he prepared lessons. We ate rice and eggs for dinner almost every day, but we always had new books from the library. He taught my daughter that dignity is worth more than comfort, that hard work builds character, that a woman doesn't need a man to be complete. Little by little, we climbed up. He got a better job at a private school, then became a pedagogical coordinator, finally a principal. He bought our first home when Beatrice was 15. She cried with joy when we walked in, and so did he, but I hid the tears preparing dinner. He couldn't show weakness. He needed to be strong for both of us. He invested every penny he had left over. No luxuries, no waste. He bought a small apartment to rent out, then another, then a commercial space. He took financial management courses on Saturdays, read everything about investments I could find. At 50, I had a fortune that Charles never dreamed of accumulating with all his scams and shady schemes. And him, he ended up bankrupt, living with his fourth wife in a rented apartment. He paid for Beatrice's entire college education, medical school, as she had always dreamed. He gave her everything she needed, but never spoiled her. She needed to understand the value of things, the weight of achievements, or at least that's what I thought I was teaching. When she introduced me to Richard, 6 years ago, he had a bad feeling, something in his eyes, in the way he assessed everything around him, calculating values, measuring opportunities. But Beatrice was in love, radiant, and who was he to spoil my daughter's happiness? If you have also gone through moments where you needed to find strength where you thought it no longer existed, continue following stories like this. They remind us that we are never alone in these silent battles. The wedding was beautiful. He paid half. Even though Richard came from a wealthy family, he wanted to contribute, to show that my daughter had her own worth. She wasn't just an add-on. They moved into a luxurious house, bought with his family's money. Richard made a point of emphasizing. Over time, the visits became more spaced out. They always had excuses: work, social commitments, tiredness. I understood, or pretended to understand. I didn't want to be the annoying mother-in-law, the suffocating mother. A year ago, my husband passed away. Yes, I remarried at 55. Albert was a widower, a history professor, kind and funny. We lived 8 wonderful years, full of simple trips, deep conversations, and genuine complicity. When he left, I cried all the tears I didn't shed for Charles. Beatrice came to the funeral, stayed for a day, and returned. Richard sent flowers and an impersonal card. The loneliness that came after wasn't the absence of Albert, it was the absence of Beatrice. My daughter called me once a week, quick, mechanical conversations. Is everything okay, Mom? Do you need anything? Okay. Bye. See you next time. Never time for lunch, never availability to have coffee. Always too busy for the woman who gave up everything for her. It was after Albert's death that Richard started with the insinuations. Teresa seems tired. The house is too big for her alone. Is she eating properly? Words disguised as concern, but I felt the poison underneath. He was planting seeds, preparing the ground. 3 months ago, I forgot my cell phone in my purse when we went to dinner. They were talking about me at the table, thinking I couldn't hear from the bathroom. She's getting senile, Richard. Yesterday she called me 3 times, asking the same thing. Ali, he had never done that. That's why I say, darling, we need to act fast, before she hears the English translation of the provided text, with cultural adaptations, to make it more accessible to an English-speaking audience. He'll do something stupid with the money. Those properties are worth a fortune, and with the right power of attorney. His voice trailed off when I returned, but I'd already heard enough. He started investigating. Discreetly, he hired a lawyer, reviewed all my documents, my will, old power of attorney, forms that Daniel had suggested I seen just in case. I discovered he was in debt, deeply in debt, bad investments, bets on deals that went south, a lifestyle way beyond his means. He needed money desperately, and I was the easiest solution. An old woman, a widow, confused, living alone, with a spineless daughter, he manipulated like a puppet. All he had to do was have me committed, take control of my assets through Bethany, and that was that. Problem solved. He completely underestimated the woman I am. He came back to the present, looking at the 2 of them in my living room. Daniel was now drumming his fingers on the document folder, impatient. Bethany was chewing her nails, a childhood habit that resurfaced when she was anxious. "I've finished my story," he announced. "Now I'm going to tell you what you don't know." I got up and went to the bookcase, pulled out a discreet folder from between the books. I placed it on the coffee table between the 3 of us. "This is the real reason you're here, isn't it, Daniel? The money." He tried to laugh, but it came out forced. "What are you talking about, Mrs. Thompson? I'm talking about your 3 million in debt, the threats of lawsuits, the shell company you created to divert funds. It's all here. I spread documents on the table. His face turned white. How did I find out? He smiled without humor. You think I'm a silly old fool, Daniel. That was your first mistake. I built a fortune from scratch while you were born with a silver spoon and managed to squander it. Did you really think you were smarter than me? Bethany was stunned, looking back and forth between me and her husband. Daniel, what is she talking about? It's Ali, Beth. Your mother is delusional, senile, confused. My voice caught through the air. How many times have you used those words, Daniel? How many times have you planted those ideas in my daughter's head? How many lies have you told about me to justify this disgusting plan? He picked up another document. This is the medical evaluation you mentioned. From Dr. Miller, your friend. You know what I found out? He lost his medical license 2 years ago for fraud. The evaluation is fake, completely fabricated. He threw the paper in his face. And this is the contract with that so-called excellent clinic, controlled by an offshore account, registered in your name. Oh, we're going to have me committed to your own property, charge my daughter a fortune for my care, take control of my assets, and keep me drugged and silenced. A perfect plan. Daniel stood up abruptly, the mask finally falling completely. You can't prove any of this, you crazy old woman. Who are they going to believe? You, a lonely widow who talks to herself, or me, a respected professional, talking to myself? He laughed, a bitter sound. Did you book my house, Daniel? Putting cameras? Because I never talk to myself. But you need to invent symptoms to justify your greed. Bethany was crying now, finally understanding. You lied to me about my mother? Her voice broke. Daniel tried to reach her, but she recoiled. Beth, wait, he can explain. It's complicated. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. The deals I just needed. You needed my money. I finished for him. And you used my daughter to get to me. Mother here believed I was sick, that it was for my own good. You destroyed what was left of the relationship between mother and daughter for pure greed. The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. He could hear the clock on the wall, each tick amplified, marking the end of an era and the beginning of another. Finally, he spoke, my voice calm and definitive. You're going to leave now. Daniel, if you approach me or my daughter again with these intentions, all these documents are going to the police and the press. Your name will be mud, and don't think I wouldn't do it to protect my family. He looked at me with pure hatred, but he knew he was defeated. He grabbed his fake papers and stormed out, slamming the door. Bethany remained, collapsed on the sofa, sobbing. He sat down next to her, but he didn't touch her. Not yet. Mom, he didn't know. He said it was for your own good, that you were forgetting things, that you could get hurt. He believed him. I'm a terrible daughter. Yes, I agreed. And she looked at me, shocked. You are a terrible daughter, not because you believed him, but because you stopped knowing me. When was the last time you really talked to me, Bethany? Not a 5-minute call to ease your conscience, but a real conversation. When was the last time you asked me how I was coping with loneliness after your father passed? When did you stop? Did you start seeing me as your mother less, and as an obligation more? She was crying copiously now, and I felt my heart clench, but I needed to say it. You abandoned me emotionally, my daughter, and that void you left was the space Raphael used for his lies. If you had been present, you would know that I am not senile. You would know that I still manage my assets perfectly, that I read 2 books a week, that I give voluntary financial advice to other widows. You would know that I have a life. I'm so sorry, Mom, so sorry. I was selfish, cowardly. You were human, he interrupted more gently, and manipulated by someone you trusted. But now you need to decide, are you going to continue being the wife who turns a blind eye to who her husband really is, or are you going to be the strong woman I raised you to be? Beatriz wiped away her tears, something changing in her eyes. He didn't know about the debts, about his schemes. Now you know. And what are you going to do with the information? She took a deep breath. I'm going to file for divorce. He can't continue with someone capable of doing this. To my mother, to me, to anyone. He felt pride flood my chest for the first time in years. This isn't going to be easy. Nothing worthwhile is easy. You taught me that. She finally hugged me, and I hugged her back, feeling my own tears run down. He just forgot along the way. Forgive me? He held her face between my hands. I've already forgiven you, but you need to forgive yourself too, and you need to be present from now on. I don't need a daughter who visits me out of obligation. I need a daughter who wants to be here. I want to. I swear I want to. And I saw truth in her eyes. The months that followed were transformative for both of us. Beatriz initiated the divorce proceedings, which were ugly and complicated, but she remained firm. Rafael tried to smear her name, spread lies, but the truth has a way of prevailing. With the documents he had gathered, he ended up being investigated for fraud. He wasn't arrested, but his reputation was destroyed, exactly as he promised. My daughter started visiting me regularly. At first, it was uncomfortable. 2 women who had become strangers trying to reconnect. But little by little, we found our rhythm. We cooked together on Sundays. He taught her my grandmother's recipes that she had forgotten. We talked for real, about fears, dreams, regrets. She told me about the pressure she felt being a doctor, about how she had lost her passion for the profession. He told her about the loneliness of growing old in a society that discards all people as worthless objects. He learned that I was almost erased, not only by Rafael, but by an entire system that decides that women my age are invisible, incompetent, a burden. How many other Teresas are out there, being silenced, institutionalized, medicated, robbed? He decided to do something about it. He created a support group for elderly women, especially widows, teaching about financial management, legal rights, how to protect themselves from scammers and abusive family members. At each meeting, I heard stories that broke my heart and ignited my fury. Donna Margarida, 82 years old, whose children put her in a nursing home and sold her house without permission. Conceição, 75, who signed documents she didn't understand and lost everything. Anna, 68, who was declared incapacitated by a corrupt doctor hired by her own grandchildren. In stories of abuse, abandonment, exploitation. And in each of these women, I saw a reflection of myself, of what I could have been if I hadn't reacted. He used my network of contacts, my money, my voice. He helped Margarida recover her house through legal action. I got a pro bono lawyer for Conceição. He reported the doctor who declared Anna incapacitated. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about all of us. All the women that society tries to erase when they decide we are no longer convenient. Beatriz joined the group, offering free medical consultations, helping to differentiate a normal forgetfulness from aging, from real problems that needed attention. We worked together, mother and daughter, finally united in a greater purpose. And in the process, our relationship healed. A year after that terrible day in my living room, I sat again in the green armchair, but now Beatriz was by my side, not as a threat, but as an ally. "Oh no, Mom," she said. "I used to think strength was not needing anyone. You raised us alone, never complained, never showed weakness. I learned that asking for help was failure." "And you were wrong," he replied gently. "The greatest strength is recognizing when you need support. I was strong because I needed to be, but I also paid a price. I was so focused on being invincible that I forgot to teach you that it's okay to be vulnerable sometimes." "I learned that the hard way, yes," she admitted. "With Rafael, I saw the signs, but I ignored them because admitting my marriage was a shame meant admitting I had failed. And you never failed at anything. I failed at many things, my daughter. I failed to ask for help when I needed it. I failed to show my weaknesses, to let you see me as human, not as a superhero. I failed to build a bridge between us when you grew up. I treated you like that child who needed protection and not like the adult woman you had become." We embraced, a long, healing embrace, full of mutual forgiveness and renewed love. And at that moment, I understood the true lesson of everything I had been through. Power is not never falling. Power is not never falling. Power is getting up, learning, evolving. Power is acknowledging our mistakes, forgiving the mistakes of others, and moving forward wiser, not more bitter. Today, at 64, I am happier than I have ever been. My house is no longer silent. It is always full of women sharing stories, learning, strengthening each other. Beatriz has lunch with me every Sunday, and sometimes we bring women from the group, turning the meal into a celebration of survival and resilience. I still live alone, but I am not lonely. And that is the difference that Rafael never understood. Loneliness is a lack of connection, not a lack of people around. I have deep connections, purpose, dignity. No one will ever harass me because I refuse to be invisible. When I look in the mirror now, I see wrinkles that were earned with every battle, every victory, every failure. I see white hairs that are medals of honor of a life lived intensely. I see eyes that have witnessed betrayal and love, pain and joy, defeat and triumph. And I see a woman who refused to be defined by the expectations of a society that wants women my age to be quiet, obedient, and convenient. I have learned that growing old in a world that values youth is an act of rebellion. To exist fully with voice, will, and power when they expect you to shrink and disappear is revolutionary. Refusing to be medicated into submission, institutionalized into oblivion, silenced into death, is a declaration of war against a system that profits from our vulnerability. My story could have ended differently. It could be in a clinic now, drugged, forgotten, while Rafael spent my money and Beatriz eased their guilt with mandatory monthly visits. But I am not. I am here, in my house, in my armchair, writing these words so that other women know you are not alone, you are not crazy, you are not a burden. You are powerful, even when they try to convince you otherwise, especially when they try to convince you otherwise. Your age is not a weakness, it is accumulated experience. Your memories are not confusion, they are distilled wisdom. Your independence is not stubbornness, it is hard-won autonomy. Don't let anyone say you. Don't agree to be defined by the convenience of others. Don't sign documents under pressure. Don't believe it when they say you are too old, too confused, too problematic. Seek help, build support networks, document everything, know your rights, and above all, remember, you have intrinsic value that does not diminish with age or with the opinion of people who want to take advantage of you. My son-in-law tried to harass me because he thought I was weak. He mistook my kindness for weakness, my age for disability, my solitude for helplessness. It was the biggest mistake of his life. And I hope my story is a warning to all the Rafaels of the world. Underestimating a woman who has survived everything. I have survived is signing your own sentence of defeat. And to all the Beatrices, the daughters who got lost along the way, who allowed themselves to be manipulated, who abandoned their mothers for convenience or pressure, it is never too late to come back. It is never too late to acknowledge mistakes, ask for forgiveness, rebuild bridges. My daughter did it, and today our relationship is stronger than ever, not because we forgot what happened, but because we chose to learn and grow from it. I sit here, looking out the window at the garden that Alberto planted and that I continue to cultivate in his memory, and I feel gratitude. Gratitude for the long and complicated life I have. Gratitude for the scars that taught me. Gratitude for having found strength when I needed it most. Gratitude for my daughter having found the courage to choose.